shield, and to serve the emperor, it turned into one of the maximum honors. You didn't get more recognized than taking walks via the streets coming from a samurai-owned family. Rick Harrison misplaced everything in an on-the-spot. One of his most unswerving employees was sentenced to life, and his pawn empire lay in ruins. His save, once an image of fulfillment, now drowns in lawsuits and betrayal. The very last stab got here from his very own mom, accusing him of deceiving her while she recovered from a coma. And while Chumlee received his very last sentence, the entirety collapsed. Tune in, because this is the brutal quit of an empire, a legend shattered earlier than our eyes. Pawn Stars' empire crumbles. Pawn Stars wasn't a few fortunate ruin. Rick and his father Richard constructed it from the ground up. Richard was as sharp as they came, a no-nonsense man who knew the game better than everybody. When he surpassed in 2018, the shop misplaced greater than its founder. It lost its backbone. Rick tried to preserve things rolling, but trouble turned into already lurking inside the shadows, waiting for the proper second to strike. But then a buried mystery surfaced, prepared to rip the entirety aside. Running a pawn save in Vegas was in no way clean. Every day become a grind, slim profits, overdue bills, and customers who brought in greater problems than valuables. But Rick had a mystery weapon: storytelling. He knew human beings were not just buying gadgets, they had been shopping for history, a bit of something bigger. That's what made Pawn Stars a success. The odd, rare gadgets, the wild backstories, all of it clicked. 8-year-old kid growing up in Utah who declared to the sector that he had an excellent mind and had a lot of these schemes to make money, then got here, the TV deal in 2009. Nobody saw it coming, however. Overnight, Rick, his son Corey, and their goofy sidekick Chumlee became household names. It was gold until it wasn't. Fame has a manner of twisting matters. Lawsuits piled up, family feuds exploded. The backstage chaos had become not possible to disregard. By 2022, the cracks in the empire had been displaying, and then came the biggest blow. Rick's very own mother dragged him to courtroom, claiming he tricked her into signing away her percentage of the shop even as she turned into recovering from a coma. She demanded a complete accounting of half $1,000,000, or even tried to damn him from the circle of relatives that once stood collectively become now tearing itself aside in public. As if that wasn't enough, the pandemic hit like a freight educate. What used to bring in millions barely scraped through with 3,7,0,0,0 in a 12 months. And then there was Chumlee. On display screen, he became a lovely goofball. Off-screen, he was a magnet for disaster. In 2016, police raided his residence and discovered sufficient substance and guns to raid him with multiple felonies. The attack cost did not stick. However, his recognition changed into within the gutter. He dodged prison with a plea deal. However, Pawn Stars would never be the equal. And then came Corey, reckless as ever. In 2020, he rented an RV for a wild desert journey, trashed it, and then refused to pay for the damages. Lawsuits accompanied, more embarrassment, extra gas for the fire. Even the so-called experts were not safe from scandal. The display's toy specialist got hit with home violence costs. The sports memorabilia man busted for fraud. I did love making a living. I did recognize that in case you went to the change meet, and also you stored on searching out silver spoons and stuff like that. If you get those real cheap, my brother had a fake ID, he ought to sell them on the pawn save. Pawn Stars wasn't just losing credibility, it becoming a gradual movement educate wreck. The display began feeling off, the one spontaneous offers now felt scripted, the negotiations seemed fake, the magic was long gone. And Rick, he became scrambling. He tried expanding his empire with Pawn Plaza, a retail complicated close to the shop, but that tanked. Lawsuits accompanied, business deals fell aside. In the empire he spent years constructing started out slipping through his hands, but the largest betrayal was still waiting. The truth behind Rick's downfall wasn't just bad success, it became personal. Family, money, greed, it became all coming to a head. And when the very last curtain fell, Pawn Stars would not be remembered for its rare finds or million greenback offers. It would be remembered because the empire that crumbled from the interior out. As Rick tried to salvage what become left, the pawn save became a battleground. Deals that used to return easy were now a war. Sellers walked in questioning that they had treasure, best to be met with brutal reality exams. A guy as soon as arrived with what he claimed was a historic war medal, expecting a windfall, but after some expert verification, it turned out to be a cheap reproduction. The appearance of defeat on his face becomes something Rick had visible too regularly lately. The collectors still came in, but the energy had changed. A girl brought in a vintage Civil War sword, convinced it would fetch hundreds. After some digging, Rick determined it wasn't as uncommon as she concept. He walked out disillusioned. A common topic nowadays. Another supplier came in with a vintage Rolex. However, it was a Frankenstein watch made from mismatched elements. The offer was a fragment of what he anticipated: more awful blood, extra tension. Pawn Star's head grew to be a shadow of its former self. The once thriving save felt like a sinking ship. The complaints, the betrayals, the scandals, it all took a toll. Rick had continually been the deal maker, the clean talker, but now he became combating simply to preserve his head above water. And then got here the moment that shattered what little hope remained. News broke that Chumlee, once the heart of the display, became sentenced to existence in jail. The plea offers the second one possibilities. It wasn't sufficient. The counterfeiters have ended up extremely professional in forging these cash. So it's extremely vital to take some time and appearance carefully, because the Satan is in the information. His beyond ultimately stuck up with him, and there has been no escaping it this time. The goofy pal who once added laughs to thousands and thousands become now just some other tragic story. The pawn shop turned into, as soon as his empire, a place in which deals have been made, fortunes were gained or misplaced, and each object had a tale. It's only a shell of what it was once. Without Adam's laughter echoing through the shop and Chumlee's goofy antics keeping things light, the region feels specific, empty, almost. He stands behind the counter, the same spot where he's made hundreds of offers. However, his mind isn't always on the store anymore. It's on Adam, his son, long gone too soon, and Chumlee, locked away forever, paying a charge that no quantity of negotiating could ever undo. The clients still come in. They deliver of their dusty heirlooms, their collector's objects, their half-of-baked goals of striking it wealthy. Rick goes through the motions, inspecting an antique coin, a signed baseball, a chunk of artwork that someone swears is worth a fortune. But his heart is not in it. Every time he turns his head, he expects to look Adam leaning against the wall, arms crossed, smirking at another dealer who thinks they've got the deal of an entire life. He expects to listen Chumlee cracking a dumb shaggy dog story from the alternative aspect of the room, but all he receives is silence. The Keep had seen trouble before, however, nothing like this. Losing money became one factor, losing own family changed into another. Rick faces his toughest losses. The offers hold rolling in. However, the thrill is long past. Some guy walks in with a so-called uncommon relic, satisfied it's well worth lots. Rick barely has the energy to negotiate. He lowballs the guy, not because he is looking to get the pleasant deal, however, due to the fact certainly he simply does not care. What's the factor? Another patron, some other object, every other day towards not anything. At domestic, it's worse. The walls experience like they're closing in. The memories of Adam flood every room, each piece of furnishings. His antique clothes nonetheless hang in the closet. His preferred chair still sits in the nook untouched. The residence is quiet, too quiet, and the information approximately Chumlee, it plays on repeat in his thoughts like a broken report. Life in prison, just like that. The man who made everybody chuckle, who observed joy inside the smallest matters, who, from time to time, were given on Rick's nerves, but always had his back. Gone. Forever. Rick tries to push ahead. He throws himself into work, into deals, into preserving the shop, strolling. But no matter what number of collectibles he appraises, regardless of how a whole lot money passes through his fingers, it would not trade the reality. The individuals who made this place feel like domestic are gone. The world moves on, but Rick is stuck. Stuck within the ache, stuck inside the loss, caught trying to parent out what comes next, whilst the entirety he knew has been ripped away. The pawn store would possibly nevertheless be statused, but its coronary heart is gone. And Rick, he is simply trying to preserve on. It had started out as simply another day, another morning waking up to an empty house, another trip to the shop with not anything but his mind maintaining him enterprise. The light's inner flickered on, illuminating the counters filled with records, artifacts from extraordinary eras and special lives, but none of them mattered anymore. One of the regulars walked in, a man who had been coming around for years, constantly bringing in strange items with tales too some distance fetched to be real. This time it changed into an old revolver, supposedly dating lower back to the early 19th century. The man claimed it had been passed down in his own family for generations, an heirloom with extra history than maximum museums. Rick barely checked out it earlier than throwing out a range of manner lower than what the vendor expected. The man scoffed, shook his head, and walked out.